Top 10 Talmud, Part 9. The Talmud in Maseches Shabbos, page 21b, discusses the laws of Chanukah. The Gemara asks the following question. My Chanukah, why do we light 8 candles on Chanukah? The Tana Rabbanan we learn in the Mishnah in Maseches Tainis the following. B'chafei b'Kislev, on the 25th day of Kislev, Yomei de Chanukah, Tmanya Einon. There are 8 days of Chanukah, and they begin on the 25th day of Kislev. Delol mesped behon, we're not allowed to give a hesped, a eulogy on those 8 days. Ulis anos behen, and we cannot fast on those days. Why? Why not? Because the Syrian Greeks under Antiochus, when he entered into the temple, they defiled all of the oil that was in the temple. Ukishegavra malchus beis Chashmonai benitzchum, when the house of Matisyahu the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and his 5 sons, they led a revolt against the Yavanim, against the Greeks, and they defeated them. Badku v'lo matzu elapach echad shel shemen shayamunach b'chosamo shel Kohen Gadol. They found, and they only found 1 cruse of oil that still had the seal of the high priest on it. Why? The only oil that can be used in the candelabrum in the Holy Temple is the first drop of oil which comes from each olive. That's the only drop which could be assured to be pure without any defects or imperfections in it. Other drops might have added sediment or pieces of the olive in the oil itself, and that invalidates the oil for use because the oil must burn cleanly, and therefore it must be pure oil without any defects in it. That's the law about the use of oil. So they only found 1 cruse of oil after they removed the Syrian Greeks and began to repair the temple. After it was defiled by the Syrian Greeks, they only found 1 cruse of oil which had the seal of the high priest, which proved that that 1 cruse of oil, which is enough for 1 day, was still holy to be used in the menorah. V'lo haya bo ela lahadlik yom echad. And there was not enough oil in that cruse to last more than 1 day. It was only enough for 1 day. Nasa bones, a miracle happened. V'idliku mimenu shmona yamim. From that cruse of oil lasted 8 days. The Gemara goes on to say, L'shana acheres, the next year, Kiba'um v'asaum yamim tovim b'halel v'hoda. They saw that year was a miracle, that 1 cruse of oil lasted for 8 days. So the following year, they reflected upon it and said, every year we should celebrate these 8 days because of the miracle that happened, that Hashem reached his hand into the world and made 1 cruse of oil last for 8 days. The deeper meaning, the iyun meaning, the investigative, the critical meaning of this is this, that when we do 1 act by lighting 1 cruse of oil, God can take that 1 act of effort and turn it into miracle. So in our lives, we could take 1 effort, 1 act of effort and input on our part, and then God partners with us and can turn that into miracle if we have enough faith. Now let's go back into the Gemara and read as follows. Tana Rabbanan, mitzvahs Chanukah, the mitzvah of Chanukah, ner ish uveso. The head of the household lights 1 candle on the first night, 1 candle the second night, 1 candle the third night, and he fulfills the obligation of his entire family. That's the basic law, says the Gemara. Now the Gemara has stated the basic law, and it could end there, but it doesn't. It goes on. In a very unusual departure, the Gemara will now say there's a second level, there's a moridin, there's a more beautiful way of fulfilling the mitzvah. What is that? The moridin, says the Gemara, ner l'chol echad ve'echad. Every night, each person of the household should light 1 candle. So if there are 5 people in the family, on the first night, each person lights a menorah with 1 candle in it. On the second night, each person in the family lights 2 candles. Third night, 3 candles. On the last night, 8 candles. That's the moridin. That's the embellishment, the beautification of the mitzvah, where you have more light because each person in the family lights 1 candle. The Gemara now goes on to a 3rd level of beautification of this mitzvah. It says, the moridin mina moridin, and those who want to extra beautify the mitzvah on a 3rd and higher level, Beit Shammai omrim, they argue when they say, Yom Rishon madlik shmona. On the first night, a person should light 8 candles. Mikan va'elech poches v'holech. A higher level of mitzvah is on the first night, each person should light 8 candles. The second night, 7 candles. The third night, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The last night, he should light 1 candle. We go 8 down to 1. That is the beautification of the mitzvah according to Beit Shammai. Beit Hillel argues and says, Yom Rishon madlik achas. On the first night, he lights 1 candle. Mikan va'elech mosif v'holech. And then, every night thereafter, he adds 1 candle. On the second night, he lights 2 candles. On the third night, 3 candles. On the last night, 8 candles. Which means every person in the house lights 1 on the first night, 2 on the second night, 3 on the third night, and all the way to the last night, the 8th night of Hanukkah, where we light 8 candles. Halachically, we paskin the halacha like Beit Hillel. That is, we light 1 candle per person on the first night, 2 on the second night, until the 8th night, where each person lights a menorah of 8 candles. But Beit Shammai, surprisingly, says on the first night you light 8, the second night 7, the third night 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's the machlokas, the argument in the Gemara. The Gemara goes on to explain this Talmudic dispute. 2 Talmudic scholars were arguing in Israel about the reasoning behind Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Chad amar tama de Beit Shammai keneged yamim hanichnasim. Because there are 8 days left on the first day, you light 8 candles because there's 8 days left of Hanukkah on day 1. On day 2, there are 7 days of Hanukkah left. And on day 3, there are 6 days. That's why he says Beit Shammai lights 8 on the first night, 7 on the second night, 6 on the third night, 5 on the fourth night, and decreasing because that's how many days left. According to this scholar, Beit Shammai says 8 down to 1 because you follow how many days are left. And this same scholar says, and the reason why Beit Hillel disagrees with Beit Shammai and says 1 and the next night 2 and the next night 3 is because, says the Gemara, Taima de Beit Hillel, the reason for Beit Hillel, Keneged Yamim Hayotzim. He says that Beit Hillel goes according to the days which have been completed. So after day 1, 1 day has been completed, you light 1 candle. The second day, 2 days have been completed, you light 2 candles. The third day, 3 days have been completed. So you count the days as they proceed, not the days which are coming, but the days which have been completed. So according to Rabbi Yossi bar Avin, that is the reason why Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel argue. This is the svara of Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai about days entering or days being completed. The second Amora, the second Talmudic scholar in Israel, who is Rabbi Yossi bar Zvida, says there's a different svara, a different logic between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, a different reason why they argue. What is the opinion? He says, V'chad amar tama de Beit Shammai keneged parayachag. According to the second opinion, the argument between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel is about this. Beit Shammai says you start with 8 and then go down 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You diminish because that follows the process of the holiday of Sukkot. On the holiday of Sukkot, we bring 70 bulls representing the 70 nations of the world, and their power diminishes. Beit Shammai says you go down on Chanukah because the light of the nations diminishes. The power of the nation diminishes as the light of the Jews rises, and therefore we follow Chanukah, bringing a diminishing number of bulls on Sukkot representing the nations of the world. Now we go back into the Gemara and find out the reasoning of Beit Hillel. According to this scholar, he says the Tama de Beit Hillel, and the reason why Beit Hillel says you go from 1 to 8 is the Maalin Bakodesh ve'ein moridin. We go up in holiness and don't go down. Beit Shammai says you go from 8 down to 1. Beit Hillel says you add Kedusha, you add sanctity. We go up in Kedusha, we don't go down. Therefore, we light 1 candle on the first night, 2 on the second night, 3 on the third night, 4 on the fourth night. On the 8th night, we light 8 candles burning bright. Now that we have read the text of the Gemara, now let's learn the Gemara. We've read the text, that's called Bekius, a superficial reading of the Gemara. Now let's understand the critical analysis of the reasoning behind Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Let's go deeper. According to Rav Zevin, in his commentary, Tzena Ura'ena, he says the following. Beit Shammai says that when a person starts a new project, he begins it with 8 candles burning bright. 8 candles were burnt On the first night of Hanukkah, when the Jewish people found 1 cruse of oil, they were so excited. But the second night, they lost enthusiasm. So there were only 7 candles burning. And the third night, 6 candles. Which reflects, he says, life. When we start a marriage, 8 candles burning bright. We get engaged, we get married, we have a chuppah, we dance, we're besimcha, we're joyous. And then when we start getting to know each other, we have 7 candles because it's not so exciting anymore. And 6 candles when we find out about the faults of the other person, and 5 candles and 4 candles. And after many years, we go down to 1 candle and we lose energy in our marriage. So too with a new job. We start off with 8 candles burning bright, enthusiastically, joyously, a new job, mazel tov. And then after the first day, or first week, or first month, then there are deadlines. Then there's office politics. Then there's challenges at work. Therefore, we lose enthusiasm. So we go down to 7, and then down to 6 candles of enthusiasm, and 5, and 4, until we get down to only 1 candle of enthusiasm because of the job. So according to Beit Shammai, the candles represent the reality of life. That we start off a project with 8 candles burning bright, but then that power diminishes and we lose energy and we go down to 1 candle left on the 8th night. According to Rav Zevin, Beit Hillel is not arguing with Beit Shammai. He agrees. That's true. When we start a new project, we start off with 8 candles burning bright, then 7, then 6. Then the marriage gets down to 5 candles and 4 candles, and the job gets down to 3 candles, and the new project gets down to 2 candles. That's reality. That's true. Says Beit Hillel, but the Jewish response to the natural waning of enthusiasm for a marriage or a job or any project that we're involved in is, as soon as you see the power, the energy, the enthusiasm in you waning, that's when I say to myself, I'm going to put in more oil in my candelabrum. I'm going to put more oil in the menorah. I'm going to add 1 level of effort. I'm going to invest more time in the marriage. I'm going to invest more time in having a business counselor. I'm going to invest more time in my work. I'm going to add more kedusha, more sanctity, more enthusiasm, more effort. So according to Beit Hillel, the secret of life is, yes, life goes down, energy goes down, enthusiasm goes down from 8 down to 1 in real life, but it doesn't have to be that way. As soon as you see the energy of your marriage, your job, your project, your involvement with your children waning, and that's the natural course of events, because people start off with 8 candles burning bright, but then it goes down to 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, says Beit Hillel, that's exactly the signal to the Jew to say, and now I'm not giving up. Now I'm going to add more effort, more energy, more enthusiasm, and I'm going to make this problem into a goal. I'm going to turn this difficulty into a challenge, and I'm going to make it work. Therefore, there's no such thing, according to Beit Hillel, as trying. I'll try. No. I'll try my best. No. According to Beit Hillel, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll put in more energy. I'll bring the last night of Chanukah, the growth of my marriage, the growth of my business, the growth of my work, from 1 candle to 2 candles to 3 candles to 4 candles, up to 8 candles burning bright, because we follow the principle, according to Beit Hillel, of Maalin, Bakodesh, moridin. We go up in enthusiasm, go up in kedusha, go up in sanctity, go up in effort, go up in investment, and not down. And through understanding the depth of this Talmudic argument, we can apply that to our lives and say, yes, it's true. Life does have its ups and downs. Yes, I do wane in my excitement for life. And yet, I can be like Beit Hillel, and that's how we paskin the halacha, that Maalin Bakodesh moridin. That's how we paskin the halacha. Then the first night of Hanukkah, we light 1 candle. The second night, 2 candles. The third night, 3 candles, because it represents the idea of a Jew putting in more effort. As soon as we see the excitement waning, that's when we put in more investment and more effort. We begin with 1, we end with 8. That's called Maalin Bakodesh, moridin. We go up and not down.